Have you ever felt like life was testing you more than usual? Like everything around you was falling apart and you couldn't explain why? Maybe things that once felt stable are now unraveling. People are drifting away, your energy is low, and deep down you're starting to wonder if you're doing something wrong, or if you've lost your way. But what if I told you this isn't a breakdown? It's a breakthrough in disguise. Sometimes when we're closest to a major turning point, life gets the loudest. It shakes us. It strips away what no longer serves us. Not to punish us, but to prepare us. What feels like chaos may actually be alignment. And what feels like falling apart may be life rearranging itself for something bigger. But here's the catch. Most people give up at this stage. Not because they're weak, but because they don't recognize the signs. They think the struggle means it's time to quit, when in truth, it's a signal they're almost there. You see, life doesn't always whisper with clarity. Sometimes it tests your faith in silence. And if you don't know what to look for, it's easy to miss the fact that everything you've been working for is right around the corner. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, uncertain, or like you're being stretched beyond your limit, pause for a moment. Don't run from it. Listen, because what you're experiencing might not be the end of the road. It might be the very edge of your transformation. And if any of what I just said speaks to you, then this video was meant to find you. Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 10 subtle but powerful signs that a breakthrough is already unfolding in your life, even if you can't see it yet. Some signs will surprise you. Others will make you rethink the struggles you've been carrying. But one thing's for sure, by the end of this video, you'll stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start realizing, it's happening for me. So take a deep breath, stay with me, and let's uncover the truth behind what you're really going through. You might be far closer than you think. Sign 1, you suddenly gain clarity about your path. Have you ever had a moment when, after feeling lost for so long, everything suddenly just clicked? One day you're consumed by doubt, unsure of your purpose, second-guessing every decision, and the next it's as if a fog has lifted. You wake up, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you know exactly what you want. Not just in theory, but in your bones. It's not just an idea, it's a deep knowing, a quiet certainty that doesn't need to be loud to feel powerful. That clarity isn't random. It doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It arrives after your soul has wrestled with confusion long enough to shed what no longer fits. You had to be lost so you could stop relying on what was familiar. You had to question everything so you could finally hear what truly matters. That long, frustrating period of uncertainty, it was never a waste of time. It was the preparation, the clearing out, the realignment. And when clarity comes, it doesn't ask for permission. It just lands. Suddenly, the things you once chased don't feel urgent anymore. The opinions of others quiet down. The distractions lose their pull. Because now you're anchored in something deeper. A vision, a direction, a truth that feels uniquely yours. I've seen this happen in my own life and in the lives of so many others. There's always that one moment when things shift, when someone stops asking for permission to be who they are and starts becoming it. That's not just a mindset change. That's a life shift. And the most beautiful part? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know what you're here to do, you can't pretend you don't. So if you've been feeling that sudden clarity, even if it's just a glimpse, honor it. Don't second guess it. That's not wishful thinking. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. and it means you're ready for the next level. Sign 2. Small wins start showing up consistently. Sometimes we expect transformation to arrive like a thunderstorm, loud, undeniable, impossible to miss. But in reality, real change often shows up quietly. It begins with small wins, subtle shifts, little moments that feel insignificant at first. But if you're paying attention, they tell a much bigger story. Maybe you've been pushing through a long season of effort. You've done the inner work. You've stretched, healed, struggled, and yet the breakthrough still hasn't come the way you imagined. But then, out of nowhere, you get a call from someone you hadn't heard from in years, an unexpected message of encouragement, a small opportunity that aligns perfectly, or a compliment that lands right when you were starting to doubt yourself. And for a split second, it feels like something is finally moving. Don't brush that off. These aren't just coincidences. They're not random. These are what I call alignment markers, small signals from life itself, testing your awareness. They're asking you, are you paying attention? Do you believe in what's coming even before it arrives in full? Because here's the truth most people miss. Life rarely gives you the full reward up front. It gives you glimpses first, moments to build your confidence, to see if you'll appreciate the process before the payoff. And if you ignore these small wins, if you tell yourself it's not enough or it doesn't matter, you actually delay the bigger one. But if you notice them, if you celebrate them, momentum begins to grow. Energy shifts. You stop chasing and you start receiving. The universe, or whatever force you believe in, starts matching your awareness with more opportunity, more clarity, more support. So if you're in that place where small things are going right, lean in. Don't say it's just a fluke. Say, I see it, I receive it, I'm ready. Because the little wins, they're not the consolation prize. They're the invitation. And your breakthrough may be closer than you think. Sign 3. You start pulling away from the noise and craving silence. Have you noticed yourself pulling back from people lately? Maybe the conversations you used to enjoy now feel dull. The social gatherings you once looked forward to suddenly feel draining. And the noise, the constant stimulation, the small talk, the rush of doing, just doesn't hit the same anymore. Instead, there's this quiet craving inside you. Not for more, but for less. Less distraction, less noise, more silence, more stillness, more space to think, to breathe, to be. And you might be wondering, am I becoming antisocial? Am I isolating myself too much? The truth is, no, you are not lost. You're evolving. When your inner world starts to change, your outer world has to catch up. And one of the first signs that something within you is shifting is this natural pull towards solitude. Not loneliness, not depression, but a deep inner need to be alone with yourself, to listen to what's rising up, to sit with questions that don't have easy answers, and to clear out the noise so you can finally hear your own voice. Think of it like this. Before a snake sheds its old skin, it retreats. Before a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it cocoons. And before an artist creates a masterpiece, they disappear into their process. In all great transformations, there's a period of withdrawal. It's not a step backward. It's a gathering of strength, a preparation for what comes next. I've gone through this myself, and I can tell you it's not always easy. People may say you've changed. They may not understand why you're not as available, why you've gone quiet, why you'd rather sit in silence than be part of the noise. But this season isn't about them. It's about you, about who you're becoming. So if you feel that pull to step away, honor it, protect it. Use this space to reflect, to heal, and to realign. Because the version of you that's emerging needs room to grow. And the people who truly belong in your life, they'll understand. They'll still be there when you return, stronger, clearer, and more grounded than ever before. Sign 4, you're losing relationships that no longer align. There comes a point in your growth when the people around you start to shift. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because you're changing. Maybe you've noticed it already. The conversations feel different. The energy feels heavier. Friends who used to check in don't call anymore. Or worse, they start criticizing you for wanting more, for dreaming bigger, for becoming someone they no longer recognize. And it hurts. Let's be honest. Losing people you once felt close to can feel like grief. It makes you question yourself. Did I outgrow them? Did I change too much? Am I the problem? But what if this isn't rejection, but redirection? The truth is, not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people are only meant to walk with us for a season, to teach us, challenge us, or mirror who we used to be. And as you start stepping into a more aligned version of yourself, it's natural that some connections begin to fade. That's not failure. That's the shedding process. Think of it like pruning a tree. You remove the dead branches not to hurt the tree, but to help it grow stronger. The same applies to your life. When old relationships fall away, it creates space. Space for people who match your new energy. People who support your healing instead of being threatened by it. People who cheer for your growth instead of trying to keep you small. I've gone through this. I've watched circles shrink, not because of conflict, but because clarity revealed who was truly meant to stay. And with every goodbye that felt uncomfortable, life eventually brought someone better aligned. Someone I wouldn't have had room for if I hadn't let go. So if you're losing people right now, don't panic. Don't chase what's pulling away. Trust that life is making space. Trust that the right ones won't need to be forced to stay. They'll feel like home. They'll meet you where you're going, not where you used to be. Let them go and keep growing. Sign 5, you feel unusually tired or restless. Have you ever woken up tired even after a full night's sleep? Or maybe you've felt the opposite, restless, wide awake in the middle of the night with a strange sense that something's about to happen, but you can't quite put your finger on what. This kind of exhaustion or agitation doesn't always have a clear reason. You're not running a marathon. You're not staying up all night worrying, yet your body feels heavy, your energy is scattered, and even the smallest tasks feel harder than usual. If you've been feeling this way, I want you to consider something. Maybe it's not your body that's tired. Maybe it's your inner self that's working overtime. When a major shift is about to happen in your life, the first place it begins isn't on the outside, it's inside. Your subconscious starts doing the work before you consciously realize what's coming. It begins rewiring old beliefs, dissolving outdated identities, and preparing you mentally, emotionally, spiritually for the next version of you. But this inner work takes energy. Just like a computer running a massive update in the background, everything on the surface may seem normal, but deep down something powerful is shifting. And that process can feel like fatigue or nervous energy, or like you're caught between two versions of yourself, the one you're outgrowing and the one you're stepping into. I've gone through this more than once, and every time it felt confusing, until I understood what was happening. I wasn't broken, I was being rebuilt. My body was asking me to slow down, to listen, and to trust the process. So if you're feeling exhausted without a clear reason, don't rush to fix it. Don't force yourself to push through or dismiss it as laziness. Rest when you need to, reflect when you can, and remind yourself, transformation doesn't always feel like inspiration. Sometimes it feels like stillness, like waiting, like your whole system is recalibrating in silence. And when it's done, you'll know, because one day you'll wake up with new energy, new focus, and a quiet strength that wasn't there before. You're not falling apart. You're powering up for what's next. Sign 6. You experience intense self-doubt. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been on the verge of something new, something meaningful, and suddenly a voice in your head whispers, "What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? What if I'm just fooling myself?" That voice can be quiet but relentless. It can show up when you least expect it, right before you take the leap, right when things start moving, right when you almost believe in yourself. If you've been feeling that heavy wave of self-doubt, you're not broken. You're not lost. In fact, you may be closer to a breakthrough than you think. Most people assume that self-doubt is a red flag, a sign they're on the wrong path. But what if it's the opposite? What if self-doubt is actually confirmation that you're stretching, that you're stepping beyond your old limits into territory that demands more of you? See, your mind is used to who you've been. It's built an identity around what's familiar, what's safe. And now that you're aiming higher, dreaming bigger, changing patterns, letting go of what no longer serves you, your subconscious starts to panic. That inner resistance, it's not truth. It's the old version of you fighting to stay alive. I've been there. I've felt that voice loud and clear just before every major shift in my life. And each time I had to remind myself, discomfort isn't a stop sign, it's a signal. It means you're entering a space your old self has never known. And of course that feels scary, but fear isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's just growing pains. So here's what I want you to remember. The presence of self-doubt doesn't mean you're not ready. It means you are, and your old identity just hasn't caught up yet. You're not pretending to be someone new. You're becoming them. And that process, it's messy, but it's real. So when that voice returns, and it will, don't argue with it. Don't try to silence it. Just nod, acknowledge it, and keep going anyway. Because the version of you who lives beyond that doubt is already waiting. Sign 7, you start noticing repeated synchronicities. Have you ever looked at the clock and seen 11:11, or maybe 2:22, 3:33, repeating numbers that show up more often than seems random? Or perhaps you've been thinking about something important, and then a stranger says the exact words you needed to hear. A quote pops up on your screen. A song lyric echoes your private thoughts. A phone call arrives just when you were doubting yourself. At first, it might feel like a coincidence, but when it keeps happening, you can't help but wonder, is something trying to get my attention? These moments, these synchronicities, aren't just random. They're gentle nudges, signs that you are aligning with something bigger than yourself. Whether you call it the universe, divine timing, intuition, or just life moving in patterns, one thing is clear. You're not walking blindly. You're being guided. I've experienced this more times than I can count. In the quiet moments when I felt unsure, the signs always showed up, not to give me answers, but to remind me I was on the right path. And I've come to believe something important. The more you pay attention to these signs, the more they appear, because awareness opens the door to alignment. Synchronicities are like breadcrumbs on the trail of your growth. They don't scream, they whisper. But you have to be present enough to hear them. Most people miss them because they're too busy, too skeptical, too distracted. But those who slow down, those who notice, begin to see life through a different lens. They stop seeing events as disconnected. They begin to trust that there's an intelligence in the flow, even if it's invisible. So the next time you see repeating numbers, a phrase that speaks directly to your soul, or a coincidence too perfect to ignore, pause. Ask yourself, what am I being reminded of? Where is this leading me? What do I need to trust? You may not get a clear answer right away, but the more you tune in, the more obvious the path becomes. These signs are not just encouragement. They're invitations to pay attention, to stay aligned, and to keep going, because the path you're on might be exactly where you need to be. Sign 8. Everything seems to be falling apart at once. There are moments in life when everything seems to collapse all at once. Relationships unravel. Opportunities disappear. Plans you were counting on fall through. And suddenly, you're surrounded by a kind of silence. Not peaceful silence, but the unsettling quiet of uncertainty. You feel stuck, cornered by circumstances, unsure of what to hold on to next. And when you're in that space, it's easy to believe something's gone wrong. That maybe you made a mistake. That life is punishing you. But I want to offer a different perspective, one that changed everything for me. What if what looks like collapse is actually a form of creation? Before a seed can grow into something new, it has to break. It doesn't sprout until its outer shell cracks open. Before dawn, the night is at its darkest, and before transformation takes place in our lives, it often arrives disguised as chaos. That breaking point you're feeling, it might be a breakthrough in progress. I've lived through seasons where everything familiar was stripped away. Friendships faded, projects failed, my confidence cracked. But looking back, those were the exact seasons that shaped me. Not because they were easy, but because they forced me to shed what was no longer aligned. They pushed me inward. They made space for something I hadn't even imagined yet. You might be there now, wondering why things are falling apart when you've been trying so hard to keep them together. But what if this is life clearing the ground? What if the relationships that ended were meant to? What if the doors that closed were never meant to stay open? It doesn't make the pain less real, but it does give it meaning. So if everything around you feels like it's breaking down, breathe. You're not being buried. You're being planted. The discomfort, the confusion, the silence, they're not signs you're off track. They're signs you're on the edge of something noir, something untoward. And when the dust settles, you may just find that what felt like an ending was actually the very beginning of who you were meant to become. Sign 9, you begin reevaluating your core values. There comes a moment when the things that used to excite you just don't anymore. The routines that once brought comfort start to feel empty. The conversations feel shallow. Even your goals, those ambitions you once chased so passionately, begin to feel like they belong to someone else. At first, it's disorienting. You might ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Why am I no longer satisfied with what used to make me happy? But here's the truth, nothing's wrong with you. You're simply evolving. This quiet shift is often one of the clearest signs that you're outgrowing the life you built on autopilot. You're no longer just reacting, you're starting to question. What do I actually value? What truly matters to me now? Not 5 years ago, not what others expect, but now. I've been through this. I remember looking at parts of my life that once felt like success, the job, the routine, the approval, and realizing they weren't feeding my soul. They were just keeping me busy. And when I finally paused long enough to listen, I heard a different voice rising inside me. One that wasn't asking me to do more, but to go deeper. This phase isn't about burning everything down. It's about redesigning with intention. It's about holding each part of your life up to the light and asking, does this align with who I'm becoming? And if the answer is no, you start letting go, not out of rebellion, but out of respect for your own truth. And yes, it can be uncomfortable. People around you might not understand why you're pulling away from certain commitments or why your priorities are shifting. But growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like asking harder questions. And sometimes it looks like rewriting the rules you were taught to live by. So if you're in this space, questioning everything, feeling disconnected from what once defined you, don't rush to fix it. Sit with it. Explore it. Because what's happening isn't confusion. It's clarity in the making. And this inner reordering, it's the beginning of building a life that finally reflects who you really are, not who you were told to be. Sign 10. You feel a deep urge to contribute to others. There's a point in your journey when personal success no longer feels like the final destination. You might still want to grow, to improve, to achieve, but there's a shift. The goals that once felt urgent start to lose their edge, and something softer but more powerful begins to rise within you. A quiet but persistent desire to give, to serve, to leave something meaningful behind. You start asking questions you never used to ask. How can I make a difference? What do I have that might help someone else? What kind of impact will I leave when I'm gone? And it's not about recognition. It's not about applause. It's about purpose, about turning everything you've been through, your lessons, your struggles, your healing, into something that matters beyond just you. I've seen this happen in people who've gone through deep transformation. Once they come out the other side, stronger, wiser, more grounded, they realize the journey wasn't just for them. It was also to equip them to be a light for someone else who's still in the dark. Maybe you felt it too, that subtle but unmistakable pull to share what you've learned, to encourage someone going through what you once went through, to use your voice, your story, your energy in a way that uplifts others. That's not random. That's not ego. That's the call of a deeper mission. When you no longer feel fulfilled by simply checking boxes or chasing status, it usually means you're ready for something more. Something that's not just about building a life, but shaping a legacy. It means you are beginning to see your life not just as a journey, but as a message. So if you feel this urge rising inside you to help, to guide, to give, don't ignore it. That's not a distraction. That's direction. And following it might just be the most important step you've taken yet, not just for your growth, but for the lives you're meant to touch along the way. If you've seen yourself in any of the signs we've explored, whether it's the fatigue, the self-doubt, the solitude, or the sudden clarity, take a breath. Because this isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of a deeper transformation. You're not falling behind. You're not unraveling. You're evolving, quietly, powerfully. And even though it may feel uncomfortable, even though the path isn't always clear, you're being moved into alignment with a version of yourself that's stronger, wiser, and more authentic. Most people give up right here, right at the edge of their breakthrough, because they mistake the storm for a sign to stop. But you know better. You've come too far to turn around now. This isn't the moment to retreat. This is the moment to close your eyes, steady your breath, and take one more step forward. Because what's waiting on the other side of this stretch may be everything you've been working for. And if this message spoke to something inside you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the tools, insights, and stories that will guide you forward. Your journey deserves support, and you don't have to walk it alone. We're building something here, a space for quiet strength, deep reflection, and steady growth. So stay with us. Your next chapter is already unfolding. All you have to do is keep showing up for it.